Well, hello, that's me again. It is November 13th, it's Sunday. So I decided to kind of spoil your weekend a little bit. But before I go, I have to address this issue which happens each time. People on the mobile devices who watch me, every time, every single time my video starts and I begin to get people posting in my discussion board that, oh no, no sound, we cannot hear anything. Be patient, let things download completely on your devices, then you will get the sound. So it takes sometimes, depending on device, evidently, some time. So it's not like I'm making things without the sound. I don't. So now that we address this, let's go and let's discuss something which I would frame as the Sitrep, really. Usually I don't do Sitrep, and this is kind of metaphysical issue. Unlike those people who, well, very many people, especially from media, who love to speculate or who love to forecast things, most of the time those forecasts are wrong, my task as the analyst is to provide framework. I do not. If I speculate, I say immediately, I speculate and here's the deal, and you know what, take it for whatever it's worth, but you know, don't quote me on that. Today I will do this a little bit, and this will be a speculation which absolutely is done with the purpose of debunking pretty much all other speculations. But let's start with the Sitrep. And here it is. And again, let me reiterate. You remember me saying this non-stop, ad nauseam. It's all practically every time I say that don't look just on tactical minutia. Look at the larger picture. And I will repeat it again before I proceed with giving you Sitrep, that again, the larger picture is this: gigantic, tectonic shifts in the world economy and world political order, and this is a clash of the titans between United States as representative of the globalist idea and Russia as representative of the new world order, and not in a bad sense. So, and this is what is happening. Ukraine is just one of the fronts, and here it is. You go to today, for example, to Wall Street Journal. I don't read all kinds of rags there, you know, like New York Times, Wall Street Journal. But again, they are establishment prostitute. I'm sorry, and so they kind of spew everything which is, you know, needed to be delivered to American public, which is primarily ignorant on the issues of war and peace. And here it is. Now it gets us a more clearer picture why Mr. Jake Sullivan flew to Kiev, and why suddenly some people say this. As Ukraine retakes Kherson, U.S. looks to diplomacy before winter slows momentum. Senior U.S. officials have begun nudging Kiev to start thinking about peace talks in the event winter stalls its momentum, following Ukraine's capture of Kherson in one of the most stunning triumphs of the war. First, evidently, a Wall Street Journal, which is normal for the most American people who work for all this kind of the trash outlets, they don't understand what recapture is. But hey, let's leave it there, because they obviously graduated Ivy League communications and journalist faculty, so that means they're pretty much dumb and ignorant. But what I want to say is, it's remarkable that they begin to talk about it, that they want some peace talks between Ukraine and Russia, and Sullivan flew, you know, to Kiev to convince Mr. Zelensky, who hopefully wasn't high at that time, to start talking peace talks. Just a second, guys. Here's immediately the issue. Why do you need peace talks if there is a momentum on Ukraine's side? They are afraid that it's going to stall in winter. I think so. Obviously, the real reason behind this is not because of momentum of Ukraine, but actually precisely the momentum behind Russia's mobilization and what is going to happen coming this winter again. People ask me all the time. Again, I don't know. I'm not the guy who says, like when he speaks about your mind or his mind when he doesn't know. I don't know. But if people ask me, I speculate or I give you the ballpark number that primarily all formations which will be established and are being established and now training for the establishment of the combat cohesion of Russian mobilization, all those 300,000 people, they will be arriving primarily by the end of this month, early December, and that automatically means you know what it means. So, and obviously Washington is desperately trying to do some kind of fixation of the, of fixing, so to speak, of the outcomes which they think this is as far as Ukraine can go. Not all of them are as stupid as former Commander-in-Chief of the European Command, Mr. Ben Hodges, who spews bullshit non-stop. There are some people still who understand what operation planning is, how the maneuver of forces are done. So they tell even to Jake Sullivan and even to this basically neocon cabal in State Department that, guys, we have to get as much as we can now. And that is why we had this press conference by both Mr. Lavrov and, of course, Maria Zakharova, which was interpreted incorrectly that, oh, Russia is ready for their negotiations. No. Russia is not going to negotiate it because, obviously, Russia didn't achieve its was the main objectives of that operation, and this is demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, and that's what Zakharov actually quite bluntly stated. But of course, everybody kind of got very excited about her phrase that basically, if any talks are to commence, then obviously it has to be with the consideration of the reality on the ground. Let me explain what reality on the ground is. And this is, again, I repeat it non-stop. Reality on the ground is very simple. It's Kherson, Zaporozhye, Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast, which are now parts of Russia, are not negotiable, let alone Crimea. And people still, for example, begin to interpret it and, saying that, oh my God, Russia is about to, collapse and start talking. No, no. And again, we know that the same as with Minsk, Kiev couldn't, do anything about Minsk II agreement. Same here, Kiev cannot negotiate this. And so everything is continuous. Or as Frank Herbert wrote in his Dune, when basically describing the Landsrat, the forms must be obeyed. And the Russians are obeying the forms. They play their diplomacy, which is completely basically slaved to the main objectives of the state as a whole. Of course, the thing which United States presently doesn't understand, because everybody does their own policy, and as a result we have what we have. And here it is. It's if you have a Wall Street Journal suddenly speaking about it, and other things of this nature, and New York Times and what have you talking about it, then yeah, it gives you a little bit of understanding what is happening. And here comes this fundamental framework. And I want to point out to you that, again, the theater, the spectacle they try to play is very simple. United States have to stave off the upcoming or incoming the defeat, which, as Scott Ritter, I believe, stated, it will be the Afghanistan 2.0 on steroids, and it is shaping to be like that. And the point is that Russia chose the war of attrition. And it's not only arthritis, the obviously armed forces of Ukraine, pardon me, which basically the first iteration of the armed forces of Ukraine have been obliterated. Russia is de facto fighting the NATO force now. The huge percentage of this new, so to speak, second iteration of the armed forces of Ukraine are people from NATO countries, including very huge presence of Poles. And Poles constitute there, oh my God, in many thousands. And there are others, Romanian, other volunteers, if you wish, and there are Americans which are being killed also, steadily, and British and French and what have you. It's unified Europe. So, and what we have here is this. while the United States desperately needs to portray itself as still as hegemon, which it's not anymore, and needs to basically prevent or stave off this upcoming reality, which even begins to dawn on people in Washington. Hence, you see yourself, number of the U.S. media free, which is basically prostitutes, begins to speak about, yeah, we need to talk to Russians, we need to talk, settle some things about Ukraine. And you already know, it's not just Jake Sullivan. People already started to talk about that. Yeah, their back channels have been open all the time, but Russians deny that they discuss Ukraine with the United States. They will not, really. They're discussing strategic stability, they're discussing of the START treaties, nuclear weapons, and things of this nature, which is still extremely important. But look at this. While this lumbering giant, as the United States views itself, which it is not anymore, continues to pretend that it really matters in terms of, and it can handle the reality, here's the thing. And this is where we'll start speaking, so to speak, about our framework. Look at this. Here's the thing which is, of course, pretty much sensational thing, and you have to understand that the United States is fighting now its allies, so to speak. Saudis never were allied, they were just basically a slave of the United States. But look at this. U.S. finds others aligned against it in Saudi-sparked oil row. When U.S. President Joe Biden accused Saudi Arabia of siding with Russia over oil, Riyadh cast itself as an emerging power that stands up to Washington and looks after its own interests. And that's been winning cheerleaders. Oh, believe me, it is. And same goes to Russia, and Russia being isolated, quote unquote, is now a ridiculous meme, obviously, because it is the United States which is increasingly isolated. And this latest news, especially about the strategic issue of oil, speaks volumes. Look at this. The oil row exposes a broader shift, with countries willing to push back against or question U.S. influence, even if that runs counter to their immediate economic interests. They are keen to deepen ties with the kingdom undergoing an economic boom, or to find ways to benefit from U.S.-Saudi friction in their own disputes with Washington. It speaks volumes. It's 2 days ago, and some people begin to notice. Obviously, people in the State Department, they don't notice things because obviously they are incompetent and malicious, and their only interest is their neocon agenda, but that's just the part of it. And suddenly, people recognize that United States is not that strong. Well, I wrote many books. I'm writing a fourth one, about the fact that what we saw from the get-go, what Wizard of Oz thingy, it was the performance and spectacle and, play played on a really crudely constructed stage, honestly. It is good for convincing people who have zero real education, who are primarily, this hipster generation also. But, it is what it is. United States is not as big as it is, and it's not as strong as it ever tried to claim itself. And I'm quoting not myself here, I'm quoting the Colonel Daniel Davis, for example, and even Pat Buchanan, for all his delusions with his paleoconservative view of the world. He stated that nobody shakes in their boots anymore about the United States. In the end, you can always buy the S-400 from Russia and few Onyx missiles, and that already kind of makes things very difficult for the United States. And here comes this very important issue. This economic giant, I'm being facetious, okay, I'm being sarcastic here, just, this economic and military giant of the United States, the leader of the free world, look what it has now. And again, these are stunning headlines. Many people still do not understand what is going on. Look at this. This is, as you can see yourself again, 2 days ago. U.S. plans to buy 100,000 rounds of artillery ammo from South Korea for Ukraine. The U.S. intends to buy 100,000 rounds of artillery ammunition from South Korea arms manufacturers to provide to Ukraine, a U.S. official said, as part of a broader effort to find available weaponry for the high-intensity battles unfolding in Ukraine. Again, delusional. Why I am on the record that Mr. Hodges doesn't understand war. He's no good. I mean, for example, and many, not all, U.S. military people really don't understand what is going on. Guys, even that is not high intensity. It is definitely way above kind of middle intensity conflict, which is happening in Ukraine. But again, people, you don't understand what war is. If war is prosecuted the way it is written in the operational, strategic, and tactical manuals of Russia, believe me, I know, I knew some of them, and per combat manuals of that, you would see the disaster on the unprecedented scale, and that will be high intensity. You would have several-fold more fire impact. You would have the cities wiped out together with the so-called Ukrainian defenders, and Kyiv will be, well, not flattened, but it would be really bad there. Not that it is good right now. And so when people say about, you think so, this is, high intensity conflict, it is definitely not an Afghanistan semi-police operation or COIN, counterinsurgency. It's definitely serious combined arms operation. But if you look attentively again as it's prosecuted, it is nothing United States ever faced in its history. It never fought anything like this. And it's going back to, abandonment of Kherson. Russia abandoned it basically with the whole population moving it out, So I'll try to tell this to people of Fallujah, for example. So there you go. And the point is, this supposedly economic giant, military giant, United States, is basically scavenging now for any kind of ammunition, including from South Korea, for crying out loud. What is South Korea? South Korea is essentially Asian part of NATO. That's what it is. It's a U.S. ally, and when the United States wants South Korea to get them 100,000 shells of ammunition, that tells you only one thing: the United States simply doesn't have industrial capacity for that. And here comes this wowzer. I did review a similar report about, I don't know, not a year ago probably, when I started my video channel. But here it is. We'll start with the headline from my good friend Larry Johnson, who is obviously very serious analyst and CIA guy, former CIA guy. Here it is. He reacted to the Government Accountability Office yesterday when they, GAO, released this yet another annual report on the state of the Americans, for example, Air Force and combat aircraft. Larry is pretty, down to business here when he says, if you think that United States is ready for a conventional war with Russia or China, think again. And I can only support Larry with his title, headline of his post, wonderful analysis, because in the end, it is all about how you play your huge geopolitical game militarily. As I already stated, war is one of the fundamental tools of the international relations. And here it is. Suddenly, Government Accountability Office releases this 352 pages, but you don't have to go to and read all those 352 pages, which are absolutely overloaded, however important and necessary are this tactical, financial, fiscal, and other minutiae. But you can even look at the summary at the website of GAO, and you will be stunned, my friends. And here it is. On the paper, obviously, United States, U.S. Air Force is the largest air force in the world. The problem is how much of this Air Force is really combat ready. And what GAO gives us in this, basically, in this report, which called Weapon Systems Sustainment, Aircraft Mission Capable Goals were generally not met, and sustainment costs varied by aircraft. This is a basically shocking headline, but then again, there is a reason they call F-22, for example, the Hangar Queen. And if you look attentively across the board of the most modern US combat aircraft, with the exception of the good old Warriors, which are still care intensive, such as F-18 or F-15, which are excellent combat aircraft, or F-16, practically any modern American aircraft requires something like on the order between for 1 hour of flight, it requires like 5, 6, sometimes more hours of the servicing. Well, and especially in special conditions, which of course never are present in the war. If you think so that you can fight and maintain a real operational tempo against the serious enemy with such type of the technology, well, I have a bridge to sell you. One of the reasons why, for example, the United States were shocked by the very limited Russian Air Force contingent flying from Khmeimim Air Base since 2015 in Syria, sustaining an incredibly high operational tempo because their servicing was very well organized and the planes continued to fly non-stop. So, but let's go back to GAO. Look what GAO says. And this is really shocking. If you look attentively, of the number of years selected aircraft met their annual mission capable, starting from the fiscal years 2011 through 2021, it's absolutely shocking. That look at this. Let's take a look at the main, so to speak, striking and defense force of United States Air Force. Look at this, what is marked in yellow. F-15 Air Force CD versions never met any kind of mission-ready criteria in 11 years. F-15E of Air Force met it 3 years out of 11. F-16 for some reason of Air Force didn't meet anything. F-22 Air Force, well, it was never combat ready, evidently. F-35A of Air Force met out of 10 years, only 2 years being mission capable. Well, I don't know how to tell you this, guys. Obviously, any Air Force in the world, it has its own, technical issues. It's absolutely normal. It absolutely traditional to sometimes cannibalize some other planes, in order to keep other planes going. But if you look attentively at this table, and you will recognize that basically, practically, no U.S. Air Force and some of the U.S. Navy aircraft, they barely meet basically mission-capable goals. I mean, practically never. Let's put it this way. Some of them never meet it to start with. The only thing which improvement was not really an improvement. It was in their Army air combat component, primarily all kinds of the helicopters and everything. They still pretty much remained about the same situation which it was in 2020, which is horrendous. And then, of course, GAO produces this, and they speak about challenges, and they specifically point out that for fiscal year 2021, GAO found that only 2 of the 49 aircraft examined met the service established mission capable goal. More specifically, for fiscal year 2021, 30 aircraft, meaning 30 types of aircraft, were more than 10% points below the mission capable goal in fiscal year 2021, and 17 aircraft were 10% points or less below the mission capable goal in fiscal year 2021. And here's the sustainment challenges which they list, which is pretty much standard, combat readiness procedures, like delays in acquiring replacement aircraft. Well, evidently Apaches have some issues arriving. Then service life extension issues with F-18. Well, they are great planes, but yeah, they're nearing their, service life. Now, F-35 ABC, it's obvious. And as you can see yourself, everything is just pretty bad. Supply support, diminishing manufacturing source, look at this. Across all platforms, guys. But shortages and delays across all platforms. And this is going on and on and on. And that is why when people ask me, well, United States wants to, plan something here and there against Russia and Ukraine. Guys, with what? The question which I constantly ask, and I write books about it, and that's what analysts do in open source intelligence. They look at the publication, and only people who are not very well versed in the actual warfare or economy, they could be basically sold this breach, which is, okay, let's face it, and this is nothing insulting, but majority people are like that. And that is why people like me, they would try to come out and say, hey, stop it here, just look around, look what is going on in reality. And that is why, as today, they speak about this optics with Mr. Lavrov arriving to wherever he arrived today for the meeting of ASEAN countries. He has the, red cover, covered of his leather to the airplane. Why Mr. Biden? Well, just look up the optics of that. And it's all about optics. That's the only way there, for example, Western political system and military operate. It's all about optics. But when you begin to dig a little bit, or hit the trunk of the tree and it collapses because it's rotten to the core. And that is why when people say and discuss this, oh my God, Russians left Kherson. Yeah, they left Kherson, and guess what? Peskov, Mr. Peskov, the spokesperson for Kremlin, stated, keep in mind, and I almost quote, it's Russian territory, so that means what? Russians are coming back. And while optics were bad, well, guess what? There is a reason the United States is desperately trying now to convince this cocaine-dependent imbecile in Kiev, the clown who is the president of whatever is left in Ukraine, that he has to fix, he has to kind of do something about the results. It's not going to work. Nobody going to be talking to him about that. And if anybody, again, as I already stated, try to speak about Russia maybe going for Nikolaev, Kherson, Nikolaev, and Odessa, the coastal cities, look up how those operations were conducted in Great Patriotic War, and you will see yourself everything what was happening there. Guess what? They were not attacking from Kherson. So, but again, it's the matter of history, and what I'm going to say now is it is becoming increasingly clear that the desperation is in Washington. The only thing they do, and this is what they always do, their task is to cover this desperation. Their task, they're afraid like hell to be seen as weak, which they are. And that is why Mr. Sullivan suddenly flies to Kiev. Some people say now that, well, Mr. Hodges thinks that Ukraine in winter will take Crimea. Well, I don't know what he was taught in whatever he graduated, U.S. Air Force Academy, and then what, General Staff and Command College in Leavenworth, Kansas. Evidently, he slept all his lectures. The guy absolutely is out of his depths. He doesn't understand what modern combined arms operations are, nor he understands what Russia is doing in Ukraine. So, and when you put this together, you get this what I'm constantly calling, saying to you, it's called the framework, the larger picture. You suddenly recognize the trend and the dynamics, so to speak. But if you ask me, and here's I'm going to be speculating, will Russia start offensive operations, large offensive operations somewhere in the north, I don't know, from Kharkov area and then swinging south? Is it possible? Absolutely possible. How probable it is? I'm sorry, guys, I am not the guy who speaks about things I don't know. And I will stress it again. I don't know. Maybe. I am certainly not privy to any information from Russia's general staff. But what I know, and it is established fact now, that actually Kremlin gave military free rein. And they will decide when, how, and in what manner they will be doing what they need to do. So, and this is what I wanted to tell you in this Sunday, and give you a little bit of the background of the event, so don't immediately establish causalities among things which I actually know in any way connected in terms of the cause and effect. Some of them probably have some kind of correlations, but nothing more than that. So this is my word for today, guys, for you. And please, those who like what I do, please support me on Patreon. And if you like what I do, subscribe to my channel. Other than that, what can I say, guys? Have the nice rest of your Sunday, and I should be talking to you next week. So have a nice day. Bye-bye.